going on, guys? Welcome to the next video on the channel. Today I'll be going over Warhammer 40K. My last video, you said it was mainly a rant thing. That was like a quick video I decided to put together to at least have something to let you know what I'm going to be discussing over. This will be a much longer video than that, and I'll go into a lot more detail about what we're doing. So Warhammer, today I'll go over the different branches of it that there is. I'm not going to go into full detail on the government. I'm going to save that for another video and go over all the Emperor, the chapters, and stuff like that, where all of them are. So for now, I'm going to keep it skimmed on that. Next, I'll go over Cadia, sort of, kind of, what kind of planet it was, and why it's so important. And then I'm going to go over what forces were there, what forces arrived, how the Chaos went and attacked them. Then I'm gonna make sure to go over each one of these, the people, who they were, and go over them, go over the equipment they had, the people, and stuff like that. How they lost, and how I would do things differently. Alright, so let's get started then, shall we? No longer than I have to, right? So Warhammer, we'll start with how the Imperium of Man works. Okay, Imperium of Man. We have the Emperor, top dog. He's the leader. He's the big man. He's still on the golden throne after a traitor stabbed him in the back. Yada yada yada. I'll discuss that in the government video of it. He was the most powerful human to ever exist, according to Warhammer 40K. He was the one who founded it all. He's the one who led humanity to do what they did. And it's kind of where we're heading ourselves to now. Breathe. Slow down. Okay. So that's the Emperor. He's a leader, pretty much mankind. Not now, currently, because he's on the golden throne and pretty much dead, but they haven't officially let his body die. His spirit's supposedly in the warp, fighting the gods of chaos all the time, getting stronger and stronger. So there's that. Alright, next, our next piece, we got the so there's different ones. There's the Space Marine chapters, Adeptus Astartes. We got the Astartes Militarium, which is the essentially basic boots of the ground for the Imperium. They're like the guardsmen. Wrong side. I got it over there in the corner there. Asher Militarium. They're the kind of foot soldiers. And then, of course, you got other branches like Adeptus Mechanicus, which are the ones who fix things and research and develop weapons technology for them. You got other branches too, but they're separate ones. I'll go into those as well. So that's essentially the government for them. Whatever comes down the chain of command to them, and they follow what is called the Codex. It is a thing that Guilliman, who is the Primarch of the Ultramarines, one of the most respected Space Marines there is, just about, he created the Codex, and whenever he was resurrected, and he made it for all the Space Marines to follow, everybody to follow. The rules you live by. Some don't, but they're still allowed to because they believe in the Emperor. So that, yeah, chapters govern themselves. It's almost like individual armies who kind of function their own way, but fly under the single banner of the Imperium of Mankind. So that's that. Let's do Chaos now. Chaos is a whole nother thing on itself. First of all, we're going to get it straight. Chaos Marines are the traitors of the Imperium of Mankind. They're the ones who stabbed the Emperor in the back and then ran to the warp to try to escape because we were hunting them down so much. So we hunted them down until they ran. And they've been in the warp ever since. They come out every few years to have another crusade to try to destroy Cadia. Apparently this one is the 13th, so they've been doing it for 13 times. 12 times before. That should tell you how much they've tried. So the Chaos Marines are not really an official branching together. They're their own chapter, same thing. They govern themselves. Chaos Space Marines are fun to read about just because of how crazy they are. Like for instance, each chapter will either attack or help the other one, even if they're the wrong kind. They may make allies. They may hate the other one. They may hate the other one because they wear red. These guys might hate the other one because they wear pink, and all this other stuff. And it's crazy. So, Chaos Space Marines take after a lot of Chaos gods as well, and they'll use their powers and abilities for things. I read the World Eaters use Khorne. Thousand Suns use Zecheek. I don't think I said that right, but and then so they go on from there. So the only banner they ever come together on is whenever they're having a crusade, and that is when Abaddon, the Despoiler, forms and comes together and says, "Hey, I'm going to attack Imperium. Come with me. Let's do it." And either you say yes or no. Sometimes you're forced into it anyway, but you usually don't have a choice if he says do it, because he is in control of the Black Legion. They're pretty much the strongest ones there. What he says goes for the most part. Nobody really attacks him. But it's interesting to read about that and how it does. So, I got him right there. Fierce Commander. Right beside him is Urkarathos. I still can't say that right. He's a demon prince as well, funnily enough. And the Chaos Lord Black Legion. Apparently a Chaos God was so impressed with him, they turned him into a demon prince. I got other ones over here too, like Death. I got the Death Card, Thousand Suns, World Bears, World Eaters, and Emperor's Children down there at the bottom. I got other stuff over there. I'll pull that out in a little bit as well. So, that's Chaos. There is no continuity except for Crusades. That's it. So, I'll go over each of these. I'm not going to go into great detail on each of the chapters wise, because that would take a whole video themselves. So, I'm going to leave that for my buddy Wes Hammer. If you want to watch a good video on him going over all those, I highly recommend him. I can put his YouTube down below in the link, and that's how you can find him. I probably shouldn't recommend another YouTuber, but I love watching him. He does the best content for Warhammer. And watching him do his videos and stuff and a few other ones I watch, it kind of gave me motivation to do this myself, because I loved what they're talking about, love what they're doing. So I said, well, I love this, so I'm going to do it myself. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into each of the things they use. Okay, so first things first, I'll pull the Imperium up first. Okay, can't hardly see it. Alright, so that Astra Militarum, they're the foot soldiers of the Empire. They are the ones who do most of the fighting. They're the ones who mainly are the foot soldiers, like I said. You have Imperial battleships. I know you can't really see the image of it. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it back here. But it is it's a great looking vessel. There's Titans and the Super Fortress Phalanx down here as well. Alright, so these are the 5 main commanders. We got Lord Castellan, Usarker E. Creed, the overall ground commander of the forces. You got Belisarius Cawl, the Archmagos of Dominus of Mars, pretty famous dude actually. You You got Trajan the Infinite, which is actually a Necron commander, funny enough. And that tells you how bad it got for the Imperium when you have to pull in, when a Necron commander shows up and says, hey, y'all need some help. I'm going to help out. Okay. Next, we got Great Wolf Logan Grimnar. Awesome, first of all, art for this. I love that. He's the Great Wolf of the Space Wolves. I got him over here. And then you got the Inquisitor Greyfax, Ordo Hereticus. The Inquisitors are pretty much the hound dogs of the Imperium. They hunt them down. They do things and stuff like that. If you can see down there, there goes the phalanx down there. It's like a super forts. I'll put a photo down there as well. So, next we got the Imperial Marines as well, the ones that helped fought it. You got the Imperial Fist, the Templar Relics, you got the Blood Ravens and Raptors, you got the Ultramarine Successors, you got the Grey Knights, you got the Black Templars, you got the Space Wolves, and then down here is the Saint Celine. I'll put up an image of her as well. So the Saint Celine, Celestine, is a living saint. She pretty much is in a way, a space marine, but more created by a holy grace. Pretty interesting to read. That scene in the book was amazing. She actually killed Urkrathos in the book Fall Cadia, which is a great read. But yeah, she ends up fighting him and killing him, funnily enough. And he's a demon prince. That should tell you how powerful she is. A normal space marine, especially Chaos Space Marine, is already dangerous. But one that's been turned into a demon prince, that's a whole nother level, dude. That is extremely whole nother level. Alright, so that's it. I'm going to go over real quick the forces numbers they had. Okay. So, Lord Castellan had 127 Cadian shock regiments. That was approximately 1.27 million guardsmen. He had 65 Karskin companies, which is about 26,000 elite troops. 18 off-world Astra Militarum regiments, was about 180,000 troops. Plus a fortress artillery and militia estimated to be 3 million total. Admiral Quarren, which I didn't put up here because I couldn't find no actual art for him, which is weird, because normally they have some sort of art, but I couldn't find any. So, Admiral Quarren had he technically had control of 2 battle groups, but the later one showed up, and it's written separately. I'll go over that in a minute. It had 1 battle group. Solar class battleship Lord Solar Macarus. 5 cruisers, 12 frigates, 24 escort craft. That's just what he had for Cadia. That's not including the reinforcements that were sent from Terra. I'll go over them in a minute. And next you got Belisarius Cawl. He had 3 Mechanicus cohorts, which was about 90,000. Scutari, 2 Manipulatus forged detachments, and Pylon research teams, which I'll go over the Pylons here in a minute. They're the main reason why the Necron shows up. Okay, you got Logan Grimnar, the Great Wolf. He had 3 companies of about 300 Space Wolves and 30 vehicles. So, a company, a average chapter has 1,000 Space Marines. That is 100 company. That is 10 companies of 100 Space Marines. So every company is average of 100. So he had about 300 Space Marines, give or take. Okay, you got Saint Celestine, the Living Saint. She is 1 Seraphim Cadre, 200 Sisters of Battle, the Gemini Supera. Inquisitor Greyfax. Operated with Cal's forces and Cerritos. He didn't have much to just himself, really. Just herself, really. Sorry. Which, funnily enough, about Greyfax is that my buddy has a Warhammer Magic the Gathering deck that actually has that card in there, which is funny because I actually used it whenever he first got it. We pulled out our decks, let us play it, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll use that one. So she was all right in the deck. I don't know how she did all right in the book as well. mainly just kind of kept getting in the way, if I'm being honest. Like, she had some good scenes, but it was more of, she just kept getting in the way. I'm sorry. Alright, Space Marines. These are the following chapters are recorded or implied. That means that they in the book, it does give some specific, but also gives, they don't do specifics that great at Game Workshop for these books because they want to leave it up to the person's imagination. Because it'd be something if you said that Cadia was only 50 miles away from the Great Rift and over 1 million miles away from Earth. So, yeah. Alright, so, Space Wolves, 300. We knew that. They were attached to Creed's command for ground relief, Wolf Priest with Call. The Black Templars, 500 Space Marines. Crusade Force, half-strength chapter. They were an independent Crusade fleet under High Marshal Helbrick, tasked with planetary counter-assaults. They showed up towards the end to help out things, but they didn't do much. Okay, we got Ultramarine Successors. We got 4 chapters, which is about 4,000 Marines. So these were, if they were mainly used for void warfare and orbital drops. They didn't really do too much on the surface wise in terms of battle. So, Grey Knights, 200 Marines. They were warp containment operations around the pylons, trying to help keep the demons off of them. Okay, Imperial Fist Detachment, the Temporal Relics, are about 150 Marines. They were helping with fortification and defenses along the Kazir Partox. Blood Ravens and Raptors, 600 Marines. Recon and counter-trader operations. Okay, that's it for the... So, for about total, you had 5,750 Space Marines. That's about 5 to 6 chapters worth. So, Astra Militarum. This is where we get to the foot soldiers. These are a lot of numbers, actually. So, Acadian shock regiments, about 127 companies. That's about 1.27 million soldiers. That's a lot of people, but for the Imperium, that's not much, actually. Especially when it's estimated that the people in the Imperium can number up to the quintillions. So, they had standard infantry and armor. There were the Karski and Stormtroopers, 65 companies with 26,000. They were elite special ops. And next you had the artillery batteries. There was 528, about 21,000 to crew it. Those were Earthshaker and Hydra guns. Help keep the drop ships and stuff at bay. You had off-world regiments for about 180,000. They were Valen, Vorstern, Morden detachments. They were helping in space along with the Ultramarines. You got the PDF and militia, which is about 3 million of civil people who live on the planet and all that. Then you have the Mechanicus Guittari, 3 legions at about 90,000. Estimated total of Imperial ground forces was about 4.5 to 5 million. That's a lot of troops. But it gets, you'll find out more of the chaos later, how much that actually pales in comparison. Okay, so next we have the Imperial fleet. Okay, this is Battle Fleet Cadia. You had 1 battleship, 5 cruisers, 30 frigates and corvettes, and about... Okay, so that was about it. That was the System Defense Corps. Now, here's where the reinforcements show up from Terra. This is why I didn't mention earlier. These kind of show up later after the initial forces are destroyed. Battle Fleet Solar Detachment. It had 2 battleships, 8 cruisers, 40 escorts, and had reinforcements. It also had the Phalanax Imperial Fist Fortress Monastery. There was 1 mobile fortress. It was huge. Mechanicus Fleet. They had 4 Arc Mechanicus vessels and 12 transports. They were part of Pylon Defense and Research Escort. Those were the ones that helped escort mostly out of there. Alright. Next, we're going to Chaos. I'm going to show you how much their numbers vary. So, Chaos. We're going to go to Abaddon, the Despoiler, my man. Okay. Abaddon, the Despoiler. Black Legion Supreme Commander. 30,000 Chaos Marines, 600 vehicles, and 3 legions worth of demons. Hang on, if I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, a legion for demons is like 1 million, I think, something like that. So yeah, 3 million worth of demons. That's at the start. Okay, next you got your Kratos, also known as Urkenthos. He's a demon prince. He helped command the final assault on the pylons. He had mainly demons on that one. So, Karn the Betrayer. Hang on, let me switch them out. That way y'all can see it better. Alright, so there's the demons. Ugly bastard. You got Chaos battleships. They look a little different than Imperium one, but not much. There's the Chaos Titans. They also look different. You got a Blackstone Fortress down here, which is what I'll talk about later. There's 3 of them, but they're about the same size as Phalanx. It's just a bit different. Okay, that's Abaddon. Urkathos, the Demon Prince. Okay, next we got Typhus, the Traveler, Death Guard Lord. Okay. Come on now. Okay, there we go. Okay, we got Ahriman's Cabal, Thousand Sun Sorcerer. You got a Corphaeron, the World Bearer Apostle. There's another one with it, but he didn't do as much, so I didn't list him. There's Karn the Betrayer, World Eater, also known as the Champion of Khorne as well. He's known to be more vicious even than the World Eater's Chapter Master. And then Lucius the Eternal, you can't see him down here, but I will show a picture of him below as well. Okay, those are all it. We're going to go over them as well next. I'm already starting on it, so you know. Karn the Destroyer, Karn the Betrayer, had 8,000 Berserkers. Corphaeron, the World Bearer's Dark Apostle, had 15,000 Legionnaires and 30,000 Cultists. Typhus the Traveler was a part of the Death Guard. He had 20,000 Plague Marines and Pestilent Zombie Hosts. Lucius the Eternal, Emperor's Children, had 10,000 Noise Marines and Demons. Ahriman's Cabal, Thousand Sun Sorcerers, according to this, unknown. He had 3,000 Rubric Marines as an estimate. But if you don't know, Rubric Marines are kind of... So their physical bodies aren't here. They're actually in the warp. But they come here as little rubric type things that appear. And when you destroy them, they just phase away. And their soul goes back, and they can come back and keep going back and forth. It's almost cheating, honestly. Alright, we're going to go by category this time. Give them more precise. Traitor Legions. You had 9 legions, about 90,000 Chaos Marines. The whole list of them are the Black Legion, World Bearers, World Eaters, Emperor's Children, Death Guard, Thousand Sons, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and Night Lords. Some of them were so kind of smaller, she didn't mention them before because they weren't that good of a commander. The first one was Commanders. Okay, we got Traitor Guard regiments. You had 200 regiments, about 2 million former Astra Militarum. So they had about 2 million actual foot soldiers that were used to be normal people. Cultists and mutants, you had countless, millions. They had Chaos Worshippers flooding the trenches and getting them in there good. That's what actually helped them a lot. But demons. Somebody was hauling boogie. Okay. Demons. Unknown. Millions, especially after the pylons fell, which I'll go into that later how many... it is unknown how many actually died, but you can give an estimate. Let me see. There's Khorne Bloodhost, Nurgle Tide. Okay. Genique Cabal. Genique. And then Slaanesh. Carnivals. Traitor Titan Legions. There were 60... Legios, about 60 Titans. Mortis, Venus, and Volturium, and then the Black Fleet of Chaos. There were 3 major war fleets with about 400 ships, mainly battleships and cruisers. Then there were 3 black stone fortresses, but one of them gets destroyed. So comparative scale, and I will put the comparative scale down below as well. So you had the Imperium, which had 5 million mutants. Oh, humans. 5 million humans, sorry. 6,000 Astartes. You had 500 tanks, Titans, and 80 capital ships. Chaos, you had 4.6 million traders, an incalculable amount of demons. You had 60 Titans. You had a super weapon as well, which the super weapon is the Will of Eternity, a black fortress, but I'll tell you about that later. And had about 400 ships, including 2 Blackstones. So, as I said, most of those ships were battleships. So, alright, there goes the calculable amount. So, we now went over the numbers. Let's go over what happened, shall we? Okay, we got ourselves Phase 1, Orbital Invasion. I'm reading this like a strategic field report. That way it's a little bit better to understand. I can explain as we go, instead of having to have it all in one planned out thing. Okay. So, we got Phase 1. Okay, the Orbital Invasion. Commanders will include, for the Imperium, Admiral Quarren, Battlefleet Cadia, about the 150 of the warships, 6,000 crew, Abaddon, the Black Fleet, Will of Eternity, and Vengeful Spirit, is 300 vessels with about 100,000 crew. So, the engagement began with sudden translation of Abaddon's Black Fleet into the Cadian system. Vox traffic and astropathic relays report a fleet numbering in the hundreds, including 2 Blackstone fortresses. So it was 2. Sorry, I read that wrong. It did it weird. But, alright, so hang on, let's talk about that. Vox traffic and astral pathways. So the way they communicate, like I said last video, instead of actual computers and stuff like that, they use astropaths to send messages and to detect things from the warp. And they use voxes, which are short range. They're pretty much walkie-talkies. In a short way. They're pretty much walkie-talkies, just a lot more advanced and further range. So what happens is an astropath will watch this pathway and will allow you to detect if there's warp energy. Sometimes they can detect it, sometimes they can't, but if it's a large enough fleet like what they did, they will detect it. It'll be a little too late, but they can still do something about it. Alright. Admiral Quarren immediately ordered the activation of orbital defense stations and mobilized Battlefleet Cadia's primary assets, including the battleships, Lord Solar Macaris, Indomitable, and the Tempest Line Cruiser Group. Initial engagements began within hours of the Black Fleet launched wide area bombardments. Quarren's lances destroyed 15 Chaos vessels in the first exchange. They had the advantage at first, but it was short-lived, of course. You know how that goes. The bad guys always win. The advantage was short-lived. The Will of Eternity had captured Blackstone Fortress, opened fire, and vaporized defensive platforms with impossible precision. It was their super weapon. Within 1 solar day, the outer ring of Cadia's orbital defense grid had collapsed. Landing craft and macro transports began atmospheric insertion along the northern hemisphere, screened by the Vengeful Spirit. Quarren's remaining ships withdrew to high orbit to provide fire cover for ground forces. Chaos didn't even care enough about them to finish them off. They let them do whatever they want to do. That's when you know you've already won. So, outcome. Fleet was decimated, orbital lost. For the Chaos, orbital dominance was achieved. We go into Phase 2, Planet Fall, and counter assaults. Okay. Commission. Commanders and units. Lord Castellan Creed, Grimnar the Great, Marshal Almenric, and 8th through the 102nd Cadian Shock Troopers. About 700,000 ground troops plus 500 Astartes. And the Chaos had Abaddon, Typhus, World Bearers, Death Guard. They had 900,000 infantry, 2,000 demon engines. So, with the orbital grid destroyed, the invasion began in earnest. The first landing struck the fortress cities of Khazar Kraf and Khazar Partrax. Mind you, I tried looking up maps for these and I couldn't find none, except for they got it in like some collector's edition thing of where you could see outer bit of it. I'll put a picture of it there, and I'll show you what it looks like. They don't have any actual battle maps of it. I even tried using AI to generate it, and it just wouldn't come out right. So I wish they would, but they don't. But Games Workshop don't do that. So, all right. With the orbital grid destroyed, the invasion began in earnest. The first landing struck the fortress cities of Khazar Kref and Khazar Partrox, Abaddon's vanguard, including the Black Legion 2nd Grand Company, World Bearer Cult regiments, and plague contingents of the Death Guard. Their initial goal: establish beachheads for the mass deployment of demon engines and armor. They use a lot of demons, mainly, because that's all they got. They don't have the people that, like, the Imperium of Man has. Okay. Creed Director Planetary Command from Khazar Kref Citadel, the Cadian 8th, 9th, 99th, and 102nd Shock Regiments man the front lines. Reinforced by Karskin veterans, Logan's Grimgar Great companies deployed near the northern bastions, while Marshal Armak's Black Templars reinforced Partrox. For 2 days, they disciplined volleys and artillery fire held the line. But this is where it went south, and this is what I was talking about earlier when I said the zombies and stuff. So the Death Guard are essentially Nurgle's people. They deal with a lot of viruses. First of all, this man, Typhus, the Traveler, was a man. He was a man, let me tell you what. So whenever they were, a funny story about him, when they were in the warp, Nurgle started trying to infect their people and all that. And Typhus, in exchange, said, look, don't infect all of my people and kill them. So instead, he took in all the infection into himself and became what he is today. He is so full of infection and different viruses and dangerous things that he has fused with his armor, which is what most Nurgle Space Marines do. That's a whole nother thing. Nurgle is a whole nother thing. There's a grimdark story hour of him that Wes does, that it is super creepy but cool at the same time what he does and what his effects do to people. So I've offered to give you a read for that one, or listen to him one day about it, because it's pretty interesting. So what happens is the Death Guard a lot of times will use viruses, or use infections and things like that on the battlefield. Some of their super viruses can wipe out whole contingents of Space Marines just because of how deadly the viruses are. Now mind you, those are super weapons. They don't use them often. So when the Death Guard's plague bombardments began, the trenches turned into death pits. On the third day, both fortress cities were under continuous siege. Pretty much whenever they send in bombardments, they send in pockets of infection mixed with zombies. What they would do is they would infect a person, infect another person, and you can imagine so on and so forth. So it kept going on from there, until eventually everybody became infected. So that was phase 2. They did that for a few days. It took them days, mind you. It's not just like an immediate thing. Battles always take days. Like this whole battle, I think they said it was over a span of like 3 weeks. And that tells you how long it took, even with the overwhelming forces and whatnot. So, next we're going to do phase 3. Commanders will be Creed, Celestine, Legio Gryphonicus, 33rd and 54th Cadian Armored. Estimated strength be about 350,000 troops, 100 armored vehicles, and 2 Titans. So Chaos. They had Typhus, Karn, and Lucius. They had 400,000 infantry, 80 demon engines, and 3 corrupted Titans. Okay. After securing footholds, the war converged on the Alesian fields, Cadia's largest open plain in the heart of its armored core. Death Guard regiments entrenched while the World Eaters charged headlong into Imperial trenches. The World Eaters, first of all, are crazy for bloodshed and all that. They will run into the battle just to kill, and that's all they do. So, the Emperor's children under Lucius unleashed sonic barrages that shattered moral and communications line. The 33rd and 54th Cadian Armor, supported by Legio, launched a counteroffensive. Warlord-class Titans met corrupted engines of the Furians Legio in an apocalyptic combat. According to what the map showed that they fought so hard from these Warlord-class Titans and whatnot It literally altered the landscape. Like, literally, you go back and look at before and afters. I'll see if I can find one. If I can't, then I'm sorry. But I'll try to find one and see if they make it so it can show you how badly it did change. So, there is that. Okay. Within a week, a third of the Cadian armor strength was gone. Ammunition stockpiles burned. Medicae stations overflowed. Then, in the depths of the siege, Saint Celestine descended upon the fields. Her appearance reignited discipline among the exhausted regiments. A counterattack pushed the Death Guard back several kilometers, but the ground itself became poisoned and uninhabitable. When Typhus returned with new plague reserves, the fields were finally lost. So, if they had a way to cure the fields, they probably would have held them, honestly, but once you infect it and poison it, you can't keep going on with it. It'll kill your foot troops. Space Marines would be fine. They could handle it to an extent, and her especially. But they ended up having to fall back anyway. Alright, this is where it gets real interesting. We got Phase 4. The Pylon Valley Conflict. Commanders include Belisarius Call, Inquisitor Greyfax, 6 Karskin regiments, Skitarii cohorts, and the Necron ally, Trazen. They had about 100,000 total. Chaos, Urkenthos, the Demon Prince. Demonic hosts of the Warp, about 1 million manifested. So, as the outer defenses failed, Archmagos Belisarius Call and Inquisitor Greyfax redeployed to the Pylon Valley, the site of ancient Necron pylons, believed to stabilize the Eye of Terror. Their mission: amplify the pylon's anti-warp resonance to stem the invasion. Mechanicus Skitarii and Karskin regiments formed a triple defensive ring supported by Space Wolf detachments. This is where it gets interesting. Unexpectedly, the Necron Lord Trazen the Infinite arrived and lended warriors and stasis vaults to the defense. You gotta be losing badly and need to save this for the Necrons to show up to help. I mean, look at me now. You gotta be in some serious shit. Okay. Like, that's the best way I can put it. You gotta be in some serious shit for the Necrons to show up and be like, hey, we'll help you out. Even though we hate you, we're still gonna help you out. Because you need it. Way more, you need it now. So, that was interesting to read that part. That part was pretty interesting. So, Abaddon dispatched Urkenthos, the Demon Prince, to break the valley. Warp storms thickened, demons poured from the rifts. Vox traffic degenerated into screams and static. For 2 days the defenders held. The Space Wolves' third great company was wiped out. The 13th Karskin detonated its own munitions to destroy a demon cohort. And then the pylons overloaded. Call's power relays reached meltdown. Greyfax's retinue extracted the Archmagos seconds before the lines collapsed. The valley fell under the tide of demons. Outcome of that, well, it was run after 2 days. They didn't last that long. There was 100,000 total versus 1 million. They won't go for that long. I'm surprised it lasted 2 days, honestly. So, Phase 5, the final assault. Commanders: Creed, 8th and 122nd Cadian Regiment, Celestine, Soratorios, Cadres troops. They had 200,000 remaining troops. Okay, and then Chaos, Abaddon, Black Legion. The Word Bearers, the Demon Reinforcements. About 500,000 troops and demon hosts. With Cadia's defenses shattered, Abaddon ordered the Wheel of Eternity, a super fortress now, to descend from orbit. The Blackstone Fortress struck near the Pylon Valley, erupting the planet's crust and obliterating hundreds of regiments. You know how cooked you gotta be to send your own damn fortress into a planet to destroy it? And he'd already won. That's the thing. He wanted the pylons destroyed because they were destroying they were keeping him from sending his full invasion force from the warp. So he blew up the planet. That's some shit. The pylon network imploded, releasing waves of warp energy that ignited the atmosphere. Creed reorganized surviving formations into rear guards to protect evacuation routes. Sorry, I had to do notes. Okay. 122nd Cadian regiments fought to the last, holding the perimeter as tectonic ruptures split the land apart. The Black Legion pressed forward, slaughtering the retreating defenders. Celestine and the remaining sororitas shielded the escape corridors. Above, the Eye of Terror widened as ever-growing wound. When the last transports escaped, Creed's final Vox broadcast echoed across dying channels. Cadia stands. Ooh, that'll give you chills right there. Reading that on the book was and in that part, that's whenever Celestine fought Urkathos and killed him as well. That was a great reading the book. I loved reading that. Okay, Phase 6, Evacuation and Collapse. Commanders are Admiral Corrin, Phalanx, Surviving Fleet, Celestine, Greyfax, and Call. Estimated strength to be 600,000 survivors. Only 12% of what they started with. Chaos, Abaddon's Pursuing Fleet, 200 warships. Okay. Admiral Corrin directed the evacuation from Lord Solar Macaris and the Phalanx, flagship of the Imperial Fists. Under relentless pursuit, Imperial vessels extracted roughly 12% of planetary survivors. That's not a lot. 12%. And that was still only 600,000 people. Can you imagine how many people died? That would be like double our world dead. That's terrible. Okay. Under relentless pursuit, Imperial vessels extracted roughly 12% of planetary survivors. Celestine and Greyfax ensured that Call's data cores and gene vaults were secured aboard evac ships. And, hang on, sorry. As the final vessel's translated into the warp, Cadia's core ruptured. The planet split into fragments and was swallowed by the storm. The collapse destabilized the Cadian Gate and widened the Eye of Terror into what became the Great Rift. A wound across the galaxy dividing Imperium from Imperium. Cadia's fall marked the end of the Old Imperium stability and the birth of the Indominus Crusade. Though the world is gone, its defenders' defiance endures in every Imperial heart. So, final summary. Here's what we got. Imperium lost a total strength committed, about 5.2 million personnel, ground and fleet. They lost 4.6, about 88%. Planet destroyed, survivors scattered. Chaos, 6.1 million, including demons and traitors. About 4.2 million lost, 69% of what they had. Objective achieved, Cadia was annihilated. So, in the end, the Great Rift formed, and Segmentum Obscurus destabilized. So, Chaos ended up winning in the end mainly because of destroying the pylons. Okay, so here's a part of the video where I'm going to try to explain what could have been done differently, but let's be honest here. Unless you were willing to... Here's my thing, okay, is that why didn't y'all use the Phalanx more? Like, why were the why were the fortresses able to even get close? Like, sorry. Why didn't you use one of them to stop it, or some battleships or something? You know, you still had ships. Shit. If I was a captain, I'd have sent my ship in to come to collision course with it, which, mind you, would have destroyed it, but hey, at least it might have slowed it down enough where it wouldn't destroy the planet. So, the pylons pretty much it helped keep the chaos closed. They were actually created by the Necrons to do that, because the chaos was trying to escape and they didn't want it to, because they were trying to use it for their power and everything else. That's a whole nother story. So pretty much the only way that they could contain it is these pylons to keep it closed. And we tried to defend it, they tried to help, it didn't work too well. So, the way I would have done it differently is that really there's no way to do it differently. And like that's being honest, like, even after reading it, I realized, I'm like, there ain't much you could have done different. Unless instead you immediately gave up the fortress worlds and defended the pylons. That's the only thing you could have done different. But even then, they got the death guard. So they could still send in infection and everything else. It was a losing battle already. There was no way to change it. much, really. I would have probably given up on the fortress cities. Whenever they first landed, I would have probably just evacuated back to the pylons to defend them, and moved the fleet up to protect the pylons from the star fortresses. But I wouldn't have known he would be dumb enough to throw a fortress into a planet and destroy it. Well, actually, no, you could have, because sorry. Whew. Sorry. Trying to breathe here. Well, no, you could say it's a chaos. You gotta expect the unexpected. You gotta think to yourself, these people are crazy. So what would a crazy person do? I mean, I probably wouldn't have done that personally, but I mean, he's crazy. I mean, that's why it works. So I probably would have, at least if I'd have saw it heading towards, I would have sent a battleship to attack it or something. Or at least move the Phalanx to defend the pylons better. At least have them there above it, like, guarding it from anything in orbit. But really, you couldn't stop it. Sorry. So, you couldn't really defend it much. I would have tried a couple things differently, but I don't think the outcome would have been different. Maybe you could have evacuated more people if you had done it the way that I had suggested, because everybody would already be there. You could have the Phalanx defending while also evacuating and stuff, but it all gave up whenever he threw the Will of Eternity into the planet. That's the moment it kind of sealed it off there. It was destroying the planet regardless. So unless you could have stopped that, it was going to happen anyway. You maybe could have held out for reinforcements to arrive, and they would have arrived, and maybe turned the tides then. But they had already sent reinforcements. A majority of those were the reinforcements, but it just wasn't happening. So guys, there goes the video for today. I know it's a long one, it's 50 minutes. I said I'll add in them images and stuff later about it. I'll do an actual government breakdown of the Warhammer and like going back a long time ago as well. That'll be in a video far from now. My next couple of videos are going to be about Cyberpunk. I'm probably going to do 2 of them. I'm probably going to discuss how the government fell, and then the Corpo Wars, and discuss those as well. So, if you liked it, give it a like. Comment down below if you like it. If you want me to do something differently, if you want me to do instead shorter videos or whatnot, Say, cut it down to like a 20-minute video instead and do it more vague, or something like that. Like, I try to do actual numbers and show stuff. That's how you get a better mental image. If y'all rather just hear like vague descriptions, you can let me know. If not, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. Just let me know down below in the comments what you like, what you don't like. I'm always open for ideas for videos as well. So, just let me know down below, and you can like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see y'all all next video.